Welcome to our new Digest reboot. It's never going to die. We're going to keep doing it, at least hopefully. This time, we're doing a top 10 list, and I think this will be the method going forward, the top 10 analysis video essays of January 2020. I have written down here, but it's actually January 2021. Never forget. But I think I like this format. The old digest is too long. It takes too long to record. It takes too long to edit. It takes too long to export and upload. I get nothing really back from it. It clutters the channel. It brings the average viewership down per video. So now here on a second channel, which is this, hopefully this is the video that launches the second channel. It's more unscripted content, as this is still unscripted. I'm not going to script out a top 10 list every month. But instead, we can just talk about the 10 videos I have the most things to say about, because sometimes the whole point behind Digest was to get me to start watching videos again, because I'd stopped completely when I started making them, and getting back into it was a lot of fun. And then I decided I was going to stop it in December, and I didn't do anything for the December videos, even though I did list out everyone I'd watched. But I just stopped watching again in December, basically. And I was like, no, that's not good enough. So I sort of have to force myself to make content about videos for me to watch videos. Not because it's not fun, but just because generally I'll prioritize something else. Time is limited and the such. But here I think it's enough. So now I can watch a bunch of videos, but I don't have to write down every video I watch, and I don't have to... Because if I don't remember one enough, then it probably wasn't one of the 10 best videos of the month. Also, there are more than 10 videos on this list. This was almost inevitable. Sometimes it's by creator. Sometimes they're grouped by a similar idea. We'll go through it and explain it as it happens. I think I might do top 5 worst videos of the month as well. Not this month, because I haven't compiled anything on that. But maybe next month, because there are I do want to criticize some videos, and there are some creators that I think need to be dragged a little bit. But that's a tentative idea for next month if we do February. February is only 28 days, so there's less videos that'll probably come out, less videos to watch, hopefully, to make this. We'll see how this goes over. We'll see how well the second channel does it all, the viewership-wise. Digest doesn't get many viewers anyway, but it'll probably get less on the second channel. We're at the beginning stages of a new journey here, but I like the framing of this list. It is a ranked list. It is. I'm just looking at it now to see if I still agree with everything. I have some notes here for only certain videos. We'll just go through it, I think. I think we may as well just start. I think that's all the intro we need to do. Still derivative. We're reviewing YouTube videos, so we're still taking Shapes' idea and running with it. And it's a fun time, I guess. So at number 10, we've got Geekvolution, which is an old YouTube channel. For Superhero Rewind is the show that Geekvolution is mostly known for. Geekvolution is a super old YouTube channel that's been doing analytical content for so long, and he's been writing about superheroes and geek-related comic book stuff, and he branches out into other things for 11 years at this point. 2010 is when... I should introduce the videos. First, a video that actually came out this month was Superhero Rewind X-Men Apocalypse, which is basically... Superhero Rewind is a series of basically reviews, but analytical reviews, usually in the form of video essays. Talking about every superhero movie was the goal, the conceit of this series. It's actually come back weekly again now, and that's part of this relaunch. He's also started doing Superhero Rewind Essentials, where he'll go back and edit some of his old reviews, his old Superhero Rewind videos into 10 minutes, because they're pretty long, and then he'll see if he can put that out and it be if it can be comprehensive in only 10 minutes after cutting it all down. And Batman Begins was his first review, I believe. No, that might not actually be true. I think in the Apocalypse one, he talks about which one was first. But it was one of the first ones. It originally came out in 2010. So he's editing together a 2010 review, and he re-uploaded it in 2021 as a 10-minute span. That also came out this month. I think both of these videos came out on the 31st of January at the same day. The newer Superhero Rewinds don't have any editing. They're basically podcasts, but they're written out, scripted. So I think it's in tune with the rest of the things we talk about here on analysis video essays. It is an essay, and it is a video. It's just not a lot of high editing movement going on. For the re-release of the Batman Begins one, there is editing because it's taken from an older video. But it's almost amazing that these videos existed 11 years ago on YouTube, where there was probably no analytical content, and it's still good. Like rewatching the Batman Begins one, the thematic discussion about how the entire movie is about fear and weaponizing fear for good or for bad, and how that relates to Batman's fucking shit. I don't know too much about Batman. I have seen that movie a long time ago. I actually rewatched The Dark Knight like 2 years ago, so it's kind of fresh in my memory. But yeah, it's just like making salient points. If you watch the original, like the Essentials one, the re-release of the 2010 video, it's like awful mic quality. It's literally like a PS3 mic or something. But it's got a charm to it. The newer one has a proper mic. He's a proper YouTube boy now. And it's just continued to get better. He's been doing this for 11 years. And I really like the approach he has to writing. I really like his approach to narration, too. I think he's a very good narrator. And being engaging and passionate in the way he talks about these things. The X-Men Apocalypse review is a negative review. Not a lot of people like that movie. He doesn't like the movie either. The Batman Begins is a very positive one. I know that's one of his favorites. If I can recall. It's also wildly nostalgic to me that I haven't checked out this channel in like 5 years, so hearing his voice again does this weird nostalgic trance to me. It like calms me down for whatever reason, because I used to watch these videos when I was like 13, and it would have been like 2014, and I was really into superhero movies at that point. 2014 was a pretty good year for superhero movies. I gradually fell off, and like also around then I was trying to watch Gotham and The Flash and Arrow and things like that, and he would do episode reviews as that shit came out, so I would watch that as well. It's just a general YouTuber that I watched, and then I sort of fell out of all that, and then fell out of the content. Even when I saw a new Superhero Rewind would come out, I wouldn't necessarily watch it. And now coming back to it and realizing that something I watched when I was so young, and these videos that are so old and that they are actually that good and they're pretty fucking great, is pretty awesome and pretty validating in its own right. The analytical style of the videos is I've watched a few other ones, they just didn't come out this month. So I'm not going to list them here, but the way he approaches something is he always talks, you can tell when he does a review, he watches the movie, he's probably seen it twice at least, then he writes, but he also incorporates not author commentary, but like director's commentary. He always watches those of the movie, so he always has some background on the creator and like what the behind the scenes of the movie, and can sort of, especially in this Apocalypse review where he's negative, he can go back and sort of like try and analyze what went wrong in production and sort of scripting and things like that. He talks about how he doesn't like to rewrite things, but he gives out other ideas on how to improve certain things. It's also a very like casual, like I've talked about this and I've criticized this in digest episodes in the past, of like the over-the-top YouTube, like negative, like everybody wants to be the angry video game nerd and the joke has to be on what you're talking about. And like you have to make fun of it and be very disrespectful and certain things like that. He doesn't do that at all. It's just a very like, and this movie, like the person he's talking about, the creator, the director of this movie is Bryan fucking Singer, who's allegedly a pedophile. It is Bryan Singer, right? I'm not saying the wrong one. I got my computer open here. Bryan Singer allegations. Let's just double check this. Yes, okay. Sexual assault of a minor. It is Bryan Singer, the person I'm talking about, allegedly. So if there was ever, it's like the Cosmonaut videos about Harry Potter, where it's like you're kind of justified in shit-talking J.K. Rowling at this point because of her political takes and things like that. Like Bryan Singer is worse than J.K. Rowling, I would say. But he doesn't. He just talks about, like, he stays on topic about what's going on with the movie and what works and doesn't work there. The way he structures his things and sort of moves from point to point, it feels very stream of conscience. How he's just like, it feels like he's just having a discussion, but it's like actually to structure a video like that, especially a scripted video, is very impressive to have that come off like naturally. Him sort of going through the points and like thematically and talking about how thematically things aren't explored as much as they could be with Apocalypse and being God or whatever. And then getting to performances and continuity stuff, and you can tell he's seen all of the X-Men movies and he's pretty knowledgeable about their productions as well, and the canonicity of certain things and how things contradict each other, and a lot like that. It's really good. I think the writing is quality here, is what I'm trying to say. Even in the 2010 video down here, the ideas and the way he approaches talking about these movies, I like a lot. And I don't know if I have much else to say. The Superhero Rewind has never been a big show on YouTube. I think he's got like 33,000 subscribers, but he has a very core fan base, it seems. It was always bewildering to me back in the day that he didn't have more subscribers. And it still is today. Like, I don't think Superhero Rewind... Like, this is... To me, it's like as foundational as like the old Red Letter Media reviews of Star Wars. I think he references that in the Apocalypse movie. And the beginning of the script. The way he writes jokes and things like that, and the way he can, like, quaintly coin, like, cliche phrases, but they work, is very... The writing, especially, it's got a very strong narrative voice. It's not like Donkey or something. But the narrative voice is there, the personality is there. And it helps carry, like, 40-minute videos about superhero movies. I was getting to a point before that, but I've completely forgotten. The underratedness of the channel. Like, I feel like Superhero Rewind is almost required viewing for anybody doing YouTube essays about media and art. And not a lot of people have seen them. So he's basically done a review of every superhero movie that had, like, except for the ones that have come out like the last 5 years. And the fact that the Superhero Rewind series is coming back weekly like it was like 10 years ago at this point is interesting and cool. I'm going to go back and catch up on the backlog more. So the ones I missed, probably rewatch some of the older ones too, and keep up with them as they come out. And maybe next month, if there's one that's super impressive or one that I like a lot, it'll probably be on here again. So Geekvolution is back on the radar, especially for the top 10 analysis video series. We'll see how we show up next time. But that's really all I've got to say about number 10 on the list, which was Geekvolution and Superhero Rewind. Number 9, we've got a tie, and they're connected by a similar idea. We've got Jenny Nicholson and Rory Deschanel. We talked about Rory Deschanel a lot. She said her name on something, and I was actually kind of saying it right, so I was impressed that I saw. I don't think we've ever talked about Jenny Nicholson. I feel like everybody knows Jenny Nicholson. She's incredibly popular. It's kind of insane how, like, every one of her videos gets like 1 million views. She's always listing things out. But the two videos we're going to be talking about here is the Vampire Diaries video by Jenny Nicholson that came out on January the 15th, 2021, and Have We Grown Out of Gossip Girl by Rory Deschanel, which was a January 16th upload, the day after each other. I didn't know that because I watched the Rory Deschanel video was right as it came out, but Miller had to send me the fucking Jenny Nicholson video. Now, the connecting idea here is these are two popular teen dramas targeted towards a more female demographic. These are two shows that I feel like anybody from my generation has heard of and heard girls around them talk about a lot. And obviously these are two female creators who have sort of grown up, who are both a bit older than me, you know, both old women compared to me, still a teenager, talking about it, and it's sort of like the appeal of these videos. The fucking Vampire Diaries one is 2 hours and a half, I'm pretty sure. The Gossip Girl one is only 22 minutes or something. Two very different approaches that we'll talk about both at once. But the appeal of, like, having some semblance of idea now, besides ads I would see in the middle of wrestling shows, because all of these shows were on Fox 8 in Australia. Like, filling in, like, what these shows were about is just curious to me. I had no idea Gossip Girl was about rich people in New York going to a university or something. I guessed that the Vampire Diaries was about vampires, but it's in some rural place, and it's a drama thingy. Like, filling in the blanks here of things that I will never watch. I don't have any intention of getting into either one of these shows. Like, just filling in the blanks of sort of now having a reference when people talk about, or when anybody talks about these shows, is kind of cool and interesting. And the approach from a more analytical perspective from both of these people, it's very interesting. Also, just as a male, getting sort of this female perspective on these sort of female-driven art things is interesting enough to like kind of figure out what the appeal of these shows are. It's pretty basic. The hot vampire boys get dated by the girls, and it's sort of a self-insert, and you get to be a rich white person in Gossip Girl was basically the appeals that were explained. But both of these videos sort of have a critical look back on these things that people liked when they were younger, and it's sort of like a coming full circle thing of looking back on what you once liked and talking about it. We should segment this. Let's talk about the Brody Deschanel video first. She's much more political driven, though. Jenny Nicholson does get into some of the racial undertones of Vampire Diaries that aren't too good about it being them celebrating the Confederacy or whatever, while the black character just has to pretend that she doesn't care and all that. But Brody Deschanel, most of their videos some of them are explicitly just political and really not that art related, like the TikTok one or whatever. But analyzing it through a historical lens of Gossip Girl, how it was airing around the crash in 2007, 2008, and sort of like how there's also going to be a reboot or whatever of Gossip Girl now, and they've changed that to make the cast more racially diverse, and how this reflects reality, and sort of going into all the details there. That's sort of what you get from a Brody Deschanel video, and I found it was interesting enough. Outside of that, for the Broy video, I watched that one when it first came out, so nearly a whole month ago now, because this video was fucking late, so I don't remember too many of the other points made. I think this was the one she filmed in public, and I had always praised her for because she would do these, I call it ContraPoints, but she didn't fucking invent this, where it's just sort of like an essay where part of it is you speaking into the camera, sort of like for an introduction of certain points, the introduction at the beginning of the video and an ending point. And Broy does this as well, where then it'll go to voiceover with footage. ContraPoints has sort of more become sort of just sitting there and talking because the fucking costume design and shit has gone over the rails. We will talk about ContraPoints later. Where was I going with this? Oh, she filmed some of it in public, and I didn't think the delivery was as good, and I know exactly why, because she was filming it in public, and it's more embarrassing to film shit in public, and you probably don't want to do 15 takes in public because you just want to get it and get done and get out. But I praised her always for being really good with the delivery and not being cringy at all with the cut, because my criticism, this is where we were building up to this point, my criticism with that type of video is usually the cutbacks to the person when they're not doing the voiceover and when they're staring into the camera. There's always a disconnect, and it doesn't really work, and it's a little cringy sometimes. I thought the Gossip Girl one was a little cringy, but I exactly know why. Because it was filmed in public, and just the energy is way different than like being on a set or being in your house and doing it. So it was like it was a relatable. I remember when we used to have to film shit in public for fucking film class in high school. It was just the worst feeling in the world, and it sort of gave me sympathy pains remembering how embarrassing that can be. So I had that. I think she was working with our friend on this video as well, who was also in the Sofia Coppola video. I think this was the best Brody Deschanel video. The Sofia Coppola one is very fucking good, so that one's probably better. And there's others I'm not thinking about. The Miyazaki one was pretty good. I don't know. But the Vampire Diaries video, it's a Jenny Nicholson video. I really like this one. She was really funny in this one. The cut-betweens with the constant re-edits of the ad that she talked about, she would always get with her friend when they watched this video when they were younger or whatever, and then the video game and the ending credits of the video game and then that playing at the end. There was good quality editing throughout, some comedy editing. It's funny because Jenny Nicholson, there is this like trope of female comedy where you do the thing where you're very like unfeeling. There's a better word for this. Not unfeeling, but like you act very disconnected. And this is sort of Jenny Nicholson's entire aesthetic, where you sort of act disconnected. I remember seeing on the Footy Show in Australia, which is a show about rugby league, and like it was like a 3-hour show on Thursday nights. And they would have comics come in and do like 5-minute skits, not skits, but just performances. They would do the comedy because there was a live crowd. And like every week they'd get a different comedian to come in, an Australian comedian. And one time they got a girl to come in, and they didn't usually get girl comedians. And her approach, I'll never forget this. I was like 8 when I was watching this, and it was like the first time I thought a girl was funny or something. And she came in and she did this sort of like acted disconnected, like spoke very slowly. And I remember the punchline was dick and coffee or something. And I remember thinking that was funny when I was 8. And it sort of reminds me of this approach, and this is sort of a trope I've seen, because I feel like to appeal to a male demographic, you can't really do female comedy, like female friend-to-friend comedy, because then, especially with media analysis, it's probably leans more in a male direction just because of a million fucking factors, sexist and otherwise. And sort of this approach works for her. And she's very good at it. Throughout the video, I don't know how good the points are, because I haven't seen the show, but she does very well. She says at the beginning, like, this is for people who haven't seen Vampire Diaries alike, and she sort of goes through. It's a very interesting look at something. She does this a lot, where, like, she'll make, like, 20-minute videos on weird YouTube series she's noticed, like the two with the... I remember watching that video. I think it's, like, her second most recent video with the weird YouTube channel and the two girls, and, like, how one host gets replaced and her reading into it and trying to do this sort of investigative, like, because she makes a video about something, she will find out. And she has a bunch of narratives throughout this video, like the author of the original book's getting fucked over because she didn't technically own the license or whatever, and how people should support that author through buying her original books that she does own the license to. Just exploring everything about Vampire Diaries from this video game that came out before the show even came out that's very bad, apparently. And all these different approaches, and I think this one's a possible reboot now, or there's just a bunch of spin-off shows or something. But both of these videos basically are just like a curious look into something specifically female-oriented in sort of like a teen target demographic. And I thought it was interesting to just listen and learn about these things. Two very different approaches, but I thought I could connect them through these ideas because I didn't have too much to say on either one of those videos, but I like them both. They're both pretty good. They're both the 9th best videos of the month, I guess. But if we can hard switch from teen female lead dramas into professional wrestling, the most masculine thing on the planet, at number 8 we got Forrest coming back. He had 2 videos this month, and the reason why he's only 8th, and usually if we had ranked Older Digest, he would have been way closer up, is the first video is my favorite series he does, where he goes back through IWGP Heavyweight Championship history. This is from 1990 to 1994. This video came out on January the 19th. I love these videos, but they're not really video essays or analysis videos. They're more just like historiographical. They're just history videos about the matches, and he watches all the matches. He gives opinions on the matches, talks about sort of the operation of the company. But the main thing here is just information. I don't really know that much about pre-2010 New Japan. I know the basics, but sort of getting it fleshed out here and talking about different title reigns and whether or not matches were actually good or not, telling you which matches to go back and watch, which eventually I'd like to do. It's just a big, it's a good, reference. I'm very glad that this video series exists. I think it actively helps, the Western wrestling community get involved and understand more of the history of Japanese wrestling. And then the other one is Rhett Titus versus Flip Gordon, the Code of Honor Pure Excellence Episode 1, which came out on the 28th of January. There's, 2 more installments in this series. I will watch this. The thing is, he usually makes New Japan videos, and he's done with that shit, besides, I guess, the history videos, hopefully. Hopefully they didn't get cancelled, too. But I think Forrest has actively stopped pursuing New Japan, full-time as a fan, because he's basically fed up with them. And so he's moved on to ROH because the Pure division is apparently really good. Now, I've never actually watched a Ring of Honor show, I don't think. I've watched separate matches here and there, besides, the MSG show that's half New Japan. Ring of Honor, isn't on TV in Australia or anything like that. I don't think it ever has been, but, I just don't have any reference. I haven't seen this match that he's talking about, so it's curious to me. I want to know that Flip Gordon, Red Ties are having good matches, and the breakdowns are fun. This video just doesn't do a whole lot for me, but that's why he's kind of 8, because the first one, I don't know if it qualifies, and the second video, I'm not too hot on. It seems fine. I like more of his videos when they're more concept analysis of how New Japan books something rather than just an analysis of a match, I guess. But I don't know. I've only seen the first fucking video. The history one I really, really fucking like, though. Honestly, it might be probably my favorite video that came out the month. But again, I don't know how much it applies, so I don't know if I'm cheating putting it on this list. It's my list. I get to define what's on it, and I'm still conflicted. Self-conflicted. But outside of that, I don't know if there's actually anything more to say about it. About the history videos, they're just well put together. I like them a lot. The Ring of Honor one seems like a good analysis of a match. One that probably people overlook. Also, I saw in the comments section that like the Ring of Honor YouTube channel like just put a heart or something and Forrester then hearted that comment. He was using footage from Ring of Honor as well in this video. I don't know if they talk to each other and Ring of Honor allowed him to use the footage. If I was him, I'd reach out and say, you should fucking give me a promotional contract or something while I fucking praise Pure Excellence. That wouldn't be too good for fucking integrity. But reaching out to them to try and see if they can like lend or allow footage. Because I know Crunchyroll does this with some anime YouTubers where they'll like send them footage. I think they do that with Mother's Basement, or at least they used to. I remember Digi talking about this in a video, how Crunchyroll offered to send them some footage. I think they denied it back then or something. But I don't know. That could be interesting if Forrest's Pure Excellence series could get like a working relationship with like actual wrestling companies to see if they would allow video essays to use footage. I think if somebody reached out to AEW just because they seem kind of like a friendly bunch over there, almost too friendly to be a good wrestling company. I feel like if somebody explained the plight of the video essayist to them, they'd probably be like, yeah. I feel like this is a sort of off topic, but in terms of footage, I feel like, because didn't HBO come out when originally like reaction videos were going off, and they sort of set the precedent for reaction videos, you're allowed 10 minutes of footage in like our Game of Thrones reaction. I remember Blindwave talking about that. Like, I feel like somebody should try and get in contact with these companies, and they should just come up with their rules. If WWE comes out and says, like, you can use our footage in your videos, they would never do this because they don't give a fuck, and why would they? It's not really in their best interest. Though it is sort of a marketing technique, so it could be in their interest. You could argue that. But, like, if one of these wrestling companies came out and said, all right, you can use 5-second clips at a time, then you have to cut to something else. You can only show total of 2 minutes from a certain match in your video, and therefore you can use like HD footage that like you can download from anywhere, and they were fine with, as long as you like link to Ring of Honor's subscription service in the description or whatever. I think like that would be the best outcome for all of us here. But I don't know. You'd have to somebody has to reach out to somebody, and I'm not that somebody, so I don't know. That's the Forest videos. We sort of got off topic at the end there. But let's move on. Now we've got Rowan Ellis. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but Black Sails, How to Write an Ending Better Than Game of Thrones is a January 6th, 2021 video. This video is like an hour and a half long, I think. It's about Black Sails, and there's not too many analytical videos about Black Sails. In fact, I think this is the only one I've watched. 1 hour and 11 minutes. I just opened it. It's a good video. I like it. It's about Black Sails for 1 hour and 11 minutes. You gotta love it. It's more of a thematic analysis and talking about how to follow through with certain things, comparing Black Sails to Game of Thrones. In a positive way, it always gets, like, Black Sails was supposed to be like people labeled it like pirate Game of Thrones when it started to come out. This video got 53,000 views. This channel seems to do a lot of, I don't know if they're essay content, though maybe. I think they might be. But it seems to be a lot about queer representation and things like that. So I don't know how, obviously Black Sails has, the main character is gay. Well, is Flint the main character? I'm pretty sure he is. Or at least bi. I'm still not sure if he actually enjoys sex with Miranda, or he's just doing it for her. I'm not quite sure. I think he does, because he even does it back in London. So I think he is bi. But anyway, queer nonetheless. And sort of, like, that's the through line. There's a lot of, because it's another progressive essayist. So it's a lot about strong women characters in Black Sails, which it has, and racial representation, because there's a lot of black characters in Black Sails too. And a bunch of just going into a lot of these political things is what tie the channel to a potential video on Black Sails, and sort of going through how Game of Thrones falls short and how Black Sails succeeds in the same certain regards, and going through the similarities at the beginning. It all works. I don't like necessarily a lot of the criticism. I don't agree with a lot of the criticisms of Game of Thrones Season 8 in this video. If I ever get around to making videos on that, we'll see what happens. But I agree with all the praise for Black Sails in the video. I actually like her reading out the monologues a lot to make her point. I think they're really cool. It sort of just highlights how well written the show is, and how, if you look at these monologues, if you look at why am I forgetting his name? I want to say Captain fucking Jack, like it's Pirates of the Caribbean. I've never even seen one of those movies. Charles Vane's friend, the dude who's still a pirate at the end. Is it Jack? I think it's Jack, right? Yes, Jack. Seeing his monologues, written out in the video, and then thinking, Jesus Christ, the performance gives so much life to this monologue that could completely fall apart, but it's also so dense that you almost couldn't conceive of a monologue like this working in a TV show. It would have to be in a book or a play or something, where people go on grand monologues. Now, Black Sails has a lot of really good monologues. It's part of its charm is all the monologues. But seeing them written out and knowing how much the actor has to work to make this script work because it should be too dense is you just gain a greater appreciation for the text and things like that. Outside of this, I don't know. This video wasn't too agreeable for me. I said that again. A lot of the Black Sails stuff I agree with. A lot of the Game of Thrones Season 8 stuff I don't necessarily agree with. Talking about the cast stuff and how enthusiastic the cast of Black Sails were throughout the entire run and how much they loved the show and got involved in fan podcasts and things like that was cool, versus showing the Game of Thrones actors being very negative in the lead up, and we've seen the fucking cut up compilations of Game of Thrones actors not being happy with it, and Daenerys, what's her actress's name? I'm forgetting all the names today. Emilia Clarke being the one interview where she laughs and acts really awkward about everything, and it's comparing those two things. That was another point. Oh, she also kind of shits on fucking season 1 of Black Sails, which I don't like, but that was another thing. So if there was a Black Sails part I disagreed with, that was it. But yeah, I don't know. There's not too much else to say about this video. Again, I watched this kind of a long time ago, probably a month ago. So I don't remember all of the specific points she goes into. I remember thinking the video was good, and this is a channel I should keep my eye on moving forward. I think I was going to say something else. But while we're on a roll, let's keep moving. At number 6, we got Innuendo Studios, who had another COVID video. The 90s neoliberal Fantasia, as experienced by Daria, whatever Daria's last name is, Millennial, Innuendo Studios. This is a video that's about a bunch of things. It's more about the millennial experience and sort of the character archetype of, the misunderstanding of the character archetype of Daria. Now, I've heard of Daria. I know it's an MTV cartoon from the 90s. I've never seen it. I was born in 2001. Leave me alone. I keep forgetting to check something. There's something going on in the back of my mind that I'm you gotta check that, and I'm not checking it. So I'm a little fucking off-put. But anyway, this video is interesting. I don't think it's the best COVID video necessarily. 146,000 views already. This video came out on January 28th, by the way, if I didn't say that. So it's pretty recent. Hold on, I'm just checking if it did a lot better than it is doing. The Cuck video did a little better, but it's doing a lot better than most of the COVID videos. A lot of the older ones have more views, but it took them longer. So this video is doing pretty good. I guess Daria is popular. But sort of talking about nostalgia and cycles and things like that. I don't know if I think a lot of these things are substantiated, him going back and talking about the cycle of Biden being a repeat of Bush 20 years later, and then not Bush, of Clinton 20 years later, and that meaning that maybe I think it ends on that realization that the next Republican might be a Bush 2.0 or 3.0, I guess. And it sort of all works. The misinterpretation of a character, that bit I did like, about how people act parents act the, what do we call them? The millennials, and then Gen X is their parents or some shit. I can't keep up with these fucking things. I know I'm Z, apparently. And sort of them, like their parents would have this sort of attitude and they would look down and they wouldn't realize that like the millennial struggle was real because when they got out of university there were no jobs and things like this, and it's just sort of the economic crashes of things. It talks about like the 90s being like this bastion, like the last bastion of he has this point where he points out that the 90s were like the only period where America wasn't in a war in like recent memory in like the last 100 years, and how this attitude sort of propagated then. And all these sorts of things. There's a lot of interesting points. It's an Innuendo Studios video. I think I found a little bit of it disagreeable, and I felt like some of it was a little bit of a stretch in certain things, and generalizing. But you sort of have to do that in these videos. I don't know. It wasn't as much of a slam dunk as like a lot of his other videos. I don't know if I'm comfortable saying it was like my least favorite COVID video so far, but the reason why it's only like 6 on the list or whatever is because of this. But I feel like every Innuendo Studios video is required viewing. Again, it's another progressive channel that's like combines media analysis and political commentary together really well, using Dario as sort of like this case study of the mindset of his generation of people. And sort of talking about the reputation millennials have of being whiners and sort of generational nostalgia. He talks about how Bruno Mars referenced like 80s stuff, so soon we're going to get into 2000s nostalgia, and talks about how there was like a movie in 2007 that had a bunch of 90s nostalgia, and it hadn't even been a decade since the 90s had ended, and certain things like that. Talking about the profit incentive for nostalgia, and it's all these sort of cool little discussions that I like. I'm just scrolling through the video now. Like he has the you don't know how good you've got it. It was so much worse in my day, and actually pointing out that it was actually so much better in like the day of the parental generation. I know there's a bunch of parts in this video. This is the war part. Make the America the 90s again. The nostalgia of the fucking this is the nostalgia of Biden specifically, about how Biden sort of returned to Clinton era politics or whatever. There's a lot. I like this video. I'm scrolling through it now. If you didn't tell, I like this video, but I don't know if there's much else for me to say about it. This hasn't worked for many years. I'm just scrolling through to try and remember some of the other specific points he made in this video. But if you ain't watching Innuendo Studios videos at this point, one of the best at this thing we do, I always say, you should be doing it. There's video game analysis a lot of the time too. I'm curious what the next one will be. I'm sure there's still like alt-right playbook videos in production or whatever. I wonder what he's going to do after like the COVID videos. And things like that. I'm interested in the forward direction of the channel mostly. See what comes next. See if there is a new video next month. There might not be. I don't think he usually takes him like 2 months to make a video, I think. So we'll see as that all comes along. But I think we're done there. Number 5, we have ContraPoints, J.K. Rowling. ContraPoints by ContraPoints, January 27th, 2021. I caught up on ContraPoints. I think it was in December, where I was watching like one ContraPoints video a day, and I got really close. And then there was like a 4-day period where I watched like the last 11 videos. Some of the new ones are a lot longer than the older ones, though. I was playing Bloons Tower Defense 6, procrastinating, and ContraPoints was in the corner. That's what I was always going to check. I was going to check how long we had been recording for, and it's been 38 minutes so far. Let's talk about, this is going to mostly be like a catch-up. I've caught up on ContraPoints. What do we think? ContraPoints is very good. I don't think the J.K. Rowling video is as good as like the most recent like 10 videos though. So that's why it's only like, what is it, number 5 on the list? Otherwise it would be a lot longer. Like I think... Let me open up the ContraPoints channel here real quick. Fuck you, the yawn is staying in. Like most recently, voting was pretty good. It was very succinct and short. It was only 20 minutes. Justice was really good. The cringe video was exceptionally good. Shame. What was the shame video about? The shame video was about her being a lesbian. That was fun. It wasn't really more of a essay type thing, more of a personal video. The cancelling one was really good. Opulence was really good. Men was really good. Transtrenders was really good. And those are sort of the ones I watched recently. The style has evolved a little bit. I think she does this thing, and YouTubers do this a lot, and it is fake because I've done it a lot. Not a lot, but sometimes. It's the thing where after she does a cut, she acts like she stumbled a line, and then goes off on a weird little thing. I don't know if I'm explaining this the best, but it's always in the script, and I've scripted things out like this. And I don't know, I kind of identify it and I kind of cringe at it. So I don't really like that aspect. I don't know if I'm explaining that right. Like where after you say a line, like she'll say a line and then she'll laugh self-aware at the last line she said and sort of have a comment afterwards. And I kind of don't like that. But outside, they have gotten funnier largely, and they have got a lot more creative in the set design. It's like the set design that I was promised by the people who like ContraPoints. Like, even in the J.K. Rowling one, she has the bit in the bath. I think it's just the bath and the general Harry Potter things. The Harry Potter references in this video are a little cringe, too. The ending with mischief managed is, I don't know about that one, Chief. There was other videos, though. I think it's the cringe one that has the best set design, maybe. Or the shame one. I'm trying to... she's also started a bunch of more recent reoccurring jokes, like the Gorge one, and That Must Be So Hard For You, that are all very funny. I really like those types of... those jokes. They're really good. What else is there to talk about? Why am I running out of things? I feel like I have 15 things to say about each one of these videos, but I can't remember any of them now. The cringe example and like the idea that she was explaining Kris Jan to a bunch of leftists that probably have no idea what's going on there is kind of like the most interesting thing I've ever thought about in my life. And identifying the Kris Jan weirdos as equally as weird as Kris Jan, I think it's a really good point. I'm scrolling through the cringe video now because we're talking about everything. I really like the structure of her videos because I'm starting to get frustrated with BreadTube videos. I talked about PhilosophyTube a lot and how she is kind of a weird copy of ContraPoints but bad. And I feel like ContraPoints always goes through every bit of the argument, and that's why a lot of the videos have gotten longer. Like, the cringe video starts with, like, defining cringe, and she spends, like, 12 minutes or whatever talking about cringe. And, like, she uses, like, American Idol or whatever as the example, and Simon Cowell, and sort of, like, she defines it in two different types of cringe, and then she, like, goes off there with her diagram things. Now we're talking about the cringe video, but fuck you, I can do what I want. What was I talking about? The two different types of cringe, and talking about how one's like a sympathetic cringe, like, oh, I feel bad, and one is like somebody getting corrected because they don't understand how bad they are and they think they're the greatest, but you sort of cringe and laugh at them. And then obviously this can tie in because then she starts talking about SJW cringe compilations and how this sort of framed dialogue in political spheres. Like, she has the fat acceptance thing where it's sort of like a person who's acting like they look perfect when they don't, and sort of enjoying the thrill of taking those people down, and then just like a video of a fat person in a pool and like people making fun of that in the comments, even though there's no fat acceptance message here. It's just like they think it's funny, so they're going to take advantage of the situation and make fun of somebody. How these are two different things, and how they're both probably bad, and the point of this video is basically making fun of people is bad, and I really like that message a lot. I feel this way even about art if we could abstract it. Like, I constantly talk about like the disrespectful way people like YMS or the Cosmonaut dude that we've talked about recently enough, or like I hear Mauler does this, even though I've never seen any of their videos. Like, a lot of the popular like angry video game nerd rip-off YouTube channels where a lot of it is like making fun of a movie that is bad to laugh at it, and like, I just don't feel like this is necessary. I feel like this appeals to like 15-year-olds who you're in high school and you desperately want to make fun of other people, so you direct the attention away from yourself. And this is, again, sort of the thesis statement of the cringe video, of going through and talking about how this is sort of like laughing at other people so nobody will laugh at you, and you got to laugh at the other people the hardest so nobody will suspect that you have anything wrong with you, and certain things like that. And this has gone into with the Kris Jan example and stuff like that. And making fun of people is just bad, and you shouldn't do it. There was like a lot of sympathy cringe in this video for me, of like this like 14-year-old non-binary person who is like getting made fun of by like anti-SJW people in their comment section. where it's just like a video diary of them wanting to like document their experience and stuff, and it's like, oh, this is like the saddest thing I've ever seen in the world, and like all like being put in a cringe compilation or something like that, and sort of like these wrecked compilations or whatever. And she goes through a bunch of ContraPoints, that is, goes through a bunch of she talks about general things that are considered cringe, and I just got the list up: bronies, furries, otaku, weebs, incels, neckbeards, fedora tippers, gamers, TikTok teens, not like other girls, fanfic writers, so I can't see this one because the fucking thing is in the way, SJW feminists, margas, trans people, non-binary people, trans trenders, queer, autistic people, fat, and all this people. And she sort of goes through how she is a bunch of these things, so like generally pretty cringe to be ContraPoints. And sort of goes through how like these are just things that people shouldn't make fun of people for. And then she goes through a bunch of old like anti-SJW villain of folklores like Big Red, and like the you're a white fucking male dude and all of these people, and Trigglypuff, and then talking and like how these people just get made fun of, and it's like, this probably isn't good. Don't do this. Don't make fun of these people. Don't make people into memes. It's just not nice, and it would be pretty terrible to be them. And then she talks about how H-Bomber Guy did this to somebody else, which was like this alpha male supplements dude or whatever the fuck, and how easily it can be turned on you. And then she sort of starts talking about anti-fans of Onision, and she says Onision wrong, which is funny, that she knows this much about Christian, but she doesn't know anything about Onision. What's going on here? Like the Tommy Wiseau thing in the room and like laughing at him sort of thing. And there's other examples she goes through. And like Wings of Redemption and certain things like that. And it's just like, these are not healthy. Like, not good. And then, again, the Chris Chan example. Then we get an aesthetic change where she's in the Ulu shirt with all the Pokemon and shit in the background. And then there's a big segment about Blair White and the trans... then she relates it to the trans issue of sort of like being a good trans person who points out all the other bad trans people, and sort of how that can do the same thing as pointing at the cringy person to hopefully indicate that you're not cringe, and sort of this deflecting of like being one of the bad group, basically. I just got it up on a big diagram here where she has cringe, and then contempt cringe, embarrassment cringe, and then vicarious and self cringe, in-group embarrassment, contempt for others, for self, morbid cringe, and sort of going through all this shit. The cringe video might be my favorite ContraPoints video. It's real fucking good. The J.K. Rowling one, I actually didn't really know anything about the J.K. Rowling situation. I just saw a lot of people getting mad on Twitter. And ContraPoints relating to this because she talked about this in her cancelling video about how cancelling people is really bad and how she sympathizes with J.K. Rowling getting cancelled, but also that she says all these bad transphobic things. There's like a manifesto apparently that J.K. Rowling put out about like trans people. And like I just thought like she made some stupid tweets and everybody got mad at her. But hearing like the like going through the manifesto thing is like, oh, oof. This isn't just bad tweets that J.K. Rowling is in trouble for. Like, she's quadrupling down on this stance. And yeah, it goes through all of these things. I know, ContraPoints is really good. I'm very happy I finally caught up. Since there was a video that came out this month, the next video probably isn't going to come out for like 4 months. So it's not like I caught up, so now I can talk about the next video that comes out next month, because the next video is probably not going to come out for a while. Justice Part 2, I assume, is going to come out soon. I think I heard her say what her next video is going to be about, but I can't remember. I don't know. But yes, we'll cover ContraPoints continuingly on the channel. They're still really good. I would recommend all the videos. You should probably go back and watch them all, like I did. It's probably the best way. You can jump into the most recent one too. The aesthetic is really good. The narration has only got better. She started to reintroduce the musical aspect. The character stuff has sort of gone down a little bit. In Opulence, there was a lot of character stuff. In Trans Trenders, it was a whole character piece. In the newer ones, it's sort of more of a serious look. Serious is an operative word there. I don't know how I feel about that word. But, like, yeah. It's, like, The aesthetic has been fully realized. The ContraPoints videos have gone in the direction I wanted them to go into. I'm a very happy little boy. But let's move on to number 4. We've got Joseph Montecillo. Another wrestling boy, if you've forgotten who that is. He had 2 videos that came out this month that I thought were worth mentioning. I think they are the only 2 videos that came out from him this month. Firstly, 2020, the year's best in wrestling, Joseph Montecillo, January the 3rd, 2021. And then Orange Cassidy video final.mp4, January 23rd, 2021. The 2020 video has a cool edited intro thing that he commissions, I'm pretty sure. This is in the structure of the video I talked about on the last version of Digest being disappointed with, about how he did this for like 1990. It wasn't exactly what I wanted. This one was a lot better, talking about current wrestling and just the best matches of the year and things like that. Just going through, it's basically a year-end list. It's an hour and 18 minutes going through the best wrestlers and the best matches of the year. Did he put Suzuki at number 1? He did. That's some Kino shit right there. But yes, it's all good. More Joseph Montecillo stuff talking about wrestling. I liked most of it. He put the Naito Okada match second to last. That's pretty cool. That's one of my favorite matches. Tag Team of the Year, Promotion of the Year, the Event of the Year. I'm talking about all this stuff. It's cool. That's not really the video that I want to highlight here. The big video of this month is the Orange Cassidy video. Now, it has an odd title called Orange Cassidy Video Final MP4 because the whole video is about how this wrestler, Orange Cassidy, does the least to get the most reaction because it's sort of a reflection of things. He brings the bread shoeby capitalism shit into here, which is a little tacked on in certain places. But it works with the conceit of the video going in multiple directions. About how, like, the video... Like, Orange Cassidy as a wrestler obviously puts a lot of work into the character, but the character is putting in the least amount of work possible. And the video is like this, where it's supposed to look intentionally low effort, even though if you know anything about video creation, it's clearly a pretty high effort video to make. And that's why the video title is something that you would have saved on your computer. Though when I save files, I always save full name shit. I always title it the entire title of the video. So it's never some shit like this. So that's a pet peeve of mine. I like when people title their files correctly. But regardless, I only realized halfway into the video that the video is it's reflecting the character because it's also being low effort conceptually, even if there's a lot of effort going into it. And it reflecting that theme I thought was real cute. I will get into a Matthew Matosis video in a second that's all about that as well, about reflecting how the best videos reflect what they're talking about. Like if you're talking about a game, reflecting the themes of the game in your video as a creative outlet is really cool. And obviously Joseph does this through the different sequences of the parts of the video where it's the oranges coming up and making a song noise, and it looks a lot of the the text looking awkward over certain things, the tenacity of the humble fire ant, talking about Orange Cassidy's old persona as Fire Ant, which I had no idea about. I don't think I was as sold on Orange Cassidy. I haven't been watching any AEW this year, so can't get mad at me for that. But I don't know if I was as sold on Orange Cassidy as I was before this video, and after the fact it's really good. But just the simple reflection of the video reflecting the character I thought was really clever, and I can't believe it took me so long to fucking realize it was happening. Just talking about Orange Cassidy being a clever wrestler, it's just, I think this video is really cool. It's sort of a breakdown of why it works, and why, if you write him off immediately, it sort of plays into the gimmick, and you've sort of fundamentally missed the point, and that's kind of the point Orange Cassidy is making as this wrestler. I'm interested. I remember there were other points I wanted to bring up while I was watching this, but they elude me now. I don't know if I have much else to say. He only got 2,000 views, and Joseph Montecillo doesn't have... we're nearly on identical subscribers at this point. He's got 4.8 as I'm seeing now. Let me just check. Maybe I'm in the lead, no fucking biggie. Let's check if the main channel, because this will be on the side channel, has 4.84. Haha. I can't believe I got a bigger channel than this idiot. When he makes these fucking Kings Road videos that are fucking 10 out of 10 videos, and I got more subscribers. Oh no. When are the Kings Road videos coming back? I know, he gets asked this all the time. I follow him on Twitter. He's tweeting about how he promises they're coming out. But I like these videos, especially year-end ones. His year-end video for last year was the first video I ever watched of his. And since then, I think I've watched nearly all of them. I actually haven't. I haven't watched the What's Wrong with WWE one. I haven't watched any of the Daniel Bryan videos because I think Daniel Bryan is boring, but maybe you can convince me otherwise. And the Zack Sabre Jr. videos, I also haven't watched. Neither the Robbie Eagles versus Panzer thing. It's probably an Australian wrestling thing that I should probably check out. So I do still have some catch-up to do with Joseph Montesilio. There's like 8 videos of his I haven't seen. So we'll have to fucking put some effort into doing that. But the Orange Cassidy video for wrestling fans is, I would say, like a must watch. It's a lot of interesting things you say in the video, and the reflective thing is cool. And the year-end list, if you're a wrestling fan, you'll be interested in that, obviously. That's why that one has nearly 5k views and the other one has 2.5k views. But I think that's really all I have to say about the Joseph Montesilio videos as well. The fucking Orange Cassidy one is real cute. And number 3, speaking of underviewed and underrated, we've got Jumanji, Vegeta, Dragon Ball's greatest loser. This is a big... Jumanji sort of operates in the Kraftsdwarf, Vindy, what sphere of sort of heavy level shonen analysis that sort of rails against like general shonen critiques that are just like untrue or as they see it about like the way people discuss shonen, especially Dragon Ball Z and Naruto and Bleach are sort of the ones that they most hold in regard and try to fight like general like misreadings and misinformation about the series. Jumanji's only got 1.14k subscribers, and this video doesn't even have 1,000 views. It's only got 800 views, and it's real fucking good. Like 11 minutes of straight Dragon Ball analysis, making you think a bunch of things you never thought about through the series because you haven't watched it in a long time. It's real good. Before we get into that, like his other videos to prove this point about how it's sort of just like attacking general stupid points that people make about these things. Like he's got Totally Not Mark is wrong about Gohan. I haven't seen that video, and I haven't seen this one either, but Goku is not a bad father, Journey for a Successor. I remember we talked about his Itachi video a long time ago. And like one of the first episodes of Digest, where I said that video was really good. It made me think about Naruto in a bunch of ways I never had thought, and then it led me to other Naruto videos by the same group of friends who usually make these shonen videos, and now I'm rewatching Naruto, and it's real fucking good. A lot better than anybody gives it credit for. And Dragon Ball's like this. Just applying an open-minded analytical approach to these shonen series and coming away with a bunch of different conclusions about how they're not just thrown together messes where retcons are abundant and themes are betrayed every 3 seconds. This is just not true. And sort of actually analyzing Vegeta's character throughout the entirety of Z and having one continuous theme about pride and thinking he's superior and how that's destructive and will get him into bad things, and talking about how him being the greatest loser is actually what makes his character great, and how he never should be the one who beats Frieza or whatever, as people say, or stupid shit like that, and how... I got a bunch of... this is one of the videos I took notes on, so I have a bunch of things written down here to talk about the video in more depth. Why Vegeta can never be the winner. Goku embodies Dragon Ball best. It's a lesson by the narrative about pride being destructive and his superiority complex because he's insecure and bitter about being weak. Becomes margin because of this, because he realizes Goku is still ahead of him, and he sees this as the only way to catch up. So he's fine going back to it. Even after he had a family and he thought that's what made Goku so strong was him wanting to protect people. Goku accepts that there's always going to be somebody stronger than him, which Vegeta refuses to accept. This is another difference between Vegeta and Goku. Goku is very passive and very happy that there will always be somebody. Like, his goal is never to be the strongest, but to find stronger people to fight. So that was a good little thematic dichotomy between the two characters, and represents that Goku's is a more positive view, and that's why he's the main character who always wins, to embolden that theme. Goku was weaker than Vegeta in the Saiyan Saga, but he won because his friends, because he has friends, whereas Vegeta threw Nappa away when he deemed him weak. That's another point he brings up in the video, where like Goku is just weaker than Vegeta in that first fight, which is something I just generally forget, and I think a lot of people generally forget. Like, Vegeta beats the shit out of him, and then he has to, like, Krillin has to throw the Spirit Bomb, but then he misses, and then Gohan has to hit it back after Yajirobe chops off Vegeta's tail, where he definitely would have won, but Yajirobe, literally the weakest out of all the fighters, helps them win because they're friends and all that. it's like a good representation of the themes of the show playing out and why Vegeta loses. And then he tries to learn from this eventually. He tries to go full speed ahead and attack Frieza, but then he ends up dead, and then he comes back, and then he starts a family, and he thinks that'll give him strength, which it kind of does, and he freaks out when Cell kills Trunks, but it doesn't make him as strong as Kakarot. And then he keeps going in the Buu Saga. Again, he thinks he's gotten stronger because he's trained for 7 years. Turns out he's still not the strongest, so he tries to become a bad guy again because he thinks maybe these things made him weak because they didn't actually make him the strongest. And he has to sort of make peace with the fact that Goku will be stronger than him. But he can still help out and save the world because he does have people he cares about, because having the people to care about is what's important, not actually being the strongest. And all this thematic stuff. It's all brought up in this fucking video. And you've never thought about it because you just shit away Dragon Ball Z because it's stupid or whatever. But if you actually go back and think about it, there's probably something to be said about DBZ. And it's the way it's written is very Craft Dwarfy. I don't know. I don't think I've ever even seen a scripted What the What video, only on their fucking podcast stuff. I watched that one MathWiz video about Naruto. No, I watched a bunch of MathWiz videos about Naruto. They were all very fucking good. But they're written similarly, where it's just like sort of not a lot of... There's like no narrative voice. There's not a lot of like personality. It's just sort of a recording about a thematic analysis essay of Dragon Ball with a bunch of images. There's also certain phrases in the way he writes that it's very similar to Craft Dwarf too. Obviously the influence is... massive. They're friends and stuff. But yeah, this video is great. I literally say it was the third best video that came out this month. Criminally underviewed, criminally underrated. It's all good stuff. Most people have seen Dragon Ball. Go back and think about it a little more with Numanji over here. How about that? Now, I think we're done with that video. And now let's move on to number 2, which is Matthew Matosis' Meta Micro videos. Now, I've got a fucking shit ton of notes on this video, because this video is a micro videos video. So there's actually 9 videos in one here. How long have we been going? Have we hit the hour mark yet? We have. We're probably going to go for like an hour and a half. So Meta Micro videos, Matthew Matosis does this micro videos thing a lot. I didn't even realize that it was meta micro videos until I'd watched 2 of the 9 videos, and then I looked over because I thought it was just another mega micro videos video, which is one of his not more famous videos, but one of his more popular videos in the past, where he did like 9 mini videos on a bunch of different games, and I think he did a second one. But this one's meta micro videos. Got this clever, cute little thing, and he's talking about meta in YouTube videos and things like that. And we want to talk about every one of the ideas he brings up because they're all interesting and all important for us all to think about as both consumers and creators of analytical/video essay/analytical videos. I repeated myself, but fuck you. So part 1 is about addressing the viewer in a review/essay, endearing yourself to the audience, making fun. He's making fun of some YouTube tropes here. Meta is easy, illusion of depth, reflecting it back upon itself. So he talks about the fact that he usually doesn't address the audience member directly in sort of the fun, poppy YouTube way of like, hey guys, me here. And then you go off on a bunch of things here to sort of, it sort of ingratiates, is that a fucking word? It emboldens the sort of parasocial stuff going on. I don't think a lot of people would feel parasocial relationships with Matthew Matosis since he's usually very emotionless, isn't really the right word, because his narration has a flow to it and charisma to it. But sort of like, I don't know anything about Matthew Matosis' personal life because he doesn't talk about it in his videos, and most of his videos are just high scripted content. Hold on, fucking yawning here. And he sort of talks about the reason why certain people do this and why it would be weird if certain people did this. And just sort of the general idea of whether you should or should not do that in videos. And it's a very interesting thing to think about. And how it can endear yourself to the audience. And he sort of makes fun of sort of some of these more general YouTube tropes about how maybe you should do the personal stuff at the beginning of the video so people are more invested in the video. Or maybe you should save it for the end of the video before you shill for your Patreon and tell people to like, comment, and subscribe. So you can get more sympathy that way. And sort of the general constructed nature, not constructive, of sort of a lot of YouTube videos and how they're trying to manipulate you into believing certain things by ingratiating themselves. I still don't know if that's a fucking word, to the viewer. And then he talks about how meta is easy. And he brings up the point where it's like, actors have to train themselves to not look at the camera, because looking at the camera is a form of meta of you're looking directly at the audience, and now the audience sort of recognizes that it's a movie. Oh no. And sort of like you're taught to try and avoid giving up the charade that this is just a story. And then like it's only because of that meta is like looking into the camera can like break the fourth wall, and sort of people are like, whoa, that's so creative. They finally went against convention and looked in the camera. How interesting. Whereas he's sort of pointing out that that's actually the easiest thing to do, and how you sort of have to work against doing that to only go back and do the easy thing to be impressive. Now he's sort of, it comes off like he's very negative on meta here. I still think it's really cool where it's like, oh, the easiest option is the most interesting sometimes. But he also talks about, he has this one line about meta being the illusion of depth reflecting back upon itself. You sort of got to think about it a little bit. But it is pretty cool. It is like, doing meta things itself, I think, is the point being made here, how that's not necessarily impressive. Meta can be very impressive, of course. And I like meta shit a lot. But part one of that video is all about how YouTube videos being meta is just sort of like addressing the audience, right? That's what breaking the fourth wall means. And how YouTube videos sometimes try to present themselves as a dialogue between creator and the audience, in this general way. Like, what do you guys think about it, or whatever the fuck? When it's really just its own work separate of that, and things like that. So that was the first video. Again, really good. This is why this video is fucking number 2 on this list, because it's like 9 fucking interesting things. Part 2 is all about clicker video games, like Cookie Clicker, and how you just click and literally you win the game by clicking enough. And he's talking about in this video designs trends that institute rewards for not good stuff, making the Pokemon grow, is sort of an example for myself. RPG elements in every game. Games are evolving to exploit us, clickbait. Getting better at the game is better than game telling you got better. He's sort of talking about how this sort of clicker, like, gross. How the cookie clicker sort of breaks some games for you if you think about it too much. Because when you're playing a cookie clicker game where you're just literally clicking on a cookie while you make more cookies and that's how you win, and you just keep clicking for like an hour and then you win, he sort of elaborates this is sort of what RPGs are, is sort of you just do, it's more steps to make it more interesting, but sort of you're just slowly watching things level up so they get stronger, so when you click the attack button, it'll do more. And I elaborated this in my head to making the Pokemon grow, where the main appeal of Pokemon games to me is catching little Stage 1 Pokemon and slowly seeing the Aron become the Aggron over 20 hours, and slowly seeing the bar go up, and team building in that regard. And then after every one of your 6 Pokemon is evolved, just looking at like the 6 big boys you now got and thinking about where you came from. That's sort of the reward of me playing Pokemon for my mind. And it's inherently arbitrary. You're just watching the things on the screen grow. You're watching the pixels fake themselves into making it look like they're more, faking it look like you're making more cookies when you just click on the mouse. And sort of pointing out the arbitrary nature of this. Now, I figured this out a long time ago, that this was all arbitrary. So it doesn't really affect me, but I know that realization initially can be very mind-blowing. And then he's talking about how, like, 2 games could be released, like 2 versions of Quake could be released, where one would have a progression system where nothing would happen, but at the end of every match you'd get experience points and you'd slowly watch the level up thing go up, and that game would be more popular than the exact same game without that system, because we've been trained and our monkey brains can be exploited so easily that watching the little bar go up is satisfying to us. It's sort of like watching the DVD player thingy when it's paused, or when it's on and it's idling and trying to hit the corners. And it's like, this is arbitrary, but your stupid brain wants it to hit the corners with the DVD thing where it bounces off the border. Like, there are these little things, and then he relates this to basically clickbait on clickbait articles, where it's like, ooh, I want to click on the giant flashing light, so it takes me to the article. And the article isn't actually about any of that, you just got clickbaited. And he talks about how this is game reviewers and like a game creator or designer responsibility about clickbait and like critique and like clickbait almost in video games of these RPG elements. Because in is it better to level something up or generally learn the mechanics of the game and get better, and therefore you are actually better at the game, or do you want the game to tell you you're better at the game by leveling up or something like that? Relating this all to clickers and sort of like how this exploits a bunch of things and exposes a bunch of like bad game design things is a really cute idea and another really good video. The second video in this fucking 40-minute compilation video. Part 3 is about Hollow Knight, but really, it's sort of how people were asking him to talk about Hollow Knight, where he's basically having frustrations with the fact that he said everything he could say about Hollow Knight, about these 2 other Metroidvania things, and how originally he was going to talk about Hollow Knight in that video, but it seemed redundant, and sort of this frustration with the audience not understanding what he's saying, because if they did, they would know what he thought about Hollow Knight, which is all cute. Getting frustrated with your audience being stupid. Couldn't relate. But he already covered Hollow Knight in his Metroidvania video. You can infer what he thinks. There's not much more to say that but the audience isn't paying attention. They just want validation. He doesn't view his videos about telling you what to think or just telling you what he thinks, but about analyzing how how games work one at a time, creating a formula, showing your work, and you're getting it right the next time. He goes down this, and I think this is slightly more applicable to games, but I still fundamentally disagree with this, obviously, because I'm a big subjective boy, and we've talked about this a million times. But the idea, basically, that he doesn't think his videos are about telling you what to think, or simply just telling you his opinion, but sort of analyzing how certain games work and certain games don't, and then creating like an understanding of that, so when the next game comes along, you can identify the same thing, sort of like pattern recognition. And he basically says this is like showing your working in the math test, because you have to show your working to show that you understand how you can tackle the next problem. Now, obviously, I view art as fundamentally different to a math problem, because a math problem has an answer and art doesn't. And it's sort of like, I don't know, bad game design doesn't really exist, and like literally a broken mess to somebody could be the greatest thing they've ever seen. And I don't think inherently, he'll talk about this in more things about Sekiro as a puzzle game, and how that's sort of an arbitrary, stupid thing to look at it by, and sort of he goes into other things about how it's better to have like an eclectic like background in games, of playing as many games as possible. I don't think any of these things are inherent, is basically just the disagreement here. But again, these are a lot of interesting things to talk about. I had to watch this video twice, second time to take all these notes. And it's just like slowly getting all these things and the things he's talking about. They, like Matthew Matos's videos, will make you think, and I like them a lot in this regard. The fourth one is about the purpose of abstraction. I think this might have been the most interesting micro video. I am fucking burpy and yawny today, and I can't fucking control it. The purpose of abstraction. People want things to be abstracted, so it's harder to put things together. I don't think this is it. If something is abstracted, it's more interpretive, therefore more personal experience. Hold on. So he has this whole part of the video is sort of about abstraction and like subtlety, and he sort of points out the reason why audiences, because it's considered highbrow to be subtle and lowbrow to be very direct. And he sort of points out that people want things to be subtle for a very lowbrow reason. So highbrow only exists for a lowbrow reason, because if you abstract something, you have to pay more attention, and you have to sort of figure out what the theme of this game is, or the theme of this story is, because it's hidden under subtext and subtlety and all this shit. But the only reason you want that is to keep you engaged, to keep your attention. So it's like, the only reason abstraction exists, why subtlety is viewed as a good thing in art, is so that it can keep your attention better than somebody just saying something. He plays a Futurama clip here with the devil talking about how Fry's music has no subtlety and it just tells you what to think. And it's sort of like not divine, the opposite of that, but lacking divinity. In the way he's doing it, because it's so unsubtle. He uses The Witness as an example here. He also talks about in The Witness one about how like he basically explains the point of The Witness in a minute, and then part of the point is like, well, if I can explain the entire idea of the game in 1 minute, why would this developer spend like 7 years of their life creating this game to make this point? He doesn't use that as a criticism. He explains why, and sort of how it's the level of abstraction, and how that 1 minute explanation couldn't get into the finer details of all the little aspects of the games and of the game and things like that. But there's a little difference here, obviously, looking at this from my very subjective point of view. Not as in my view as subjective, but as from a subjective perspective, I would say. The thing about abstraction isn't necessarily that you have to work to get the answer. I feel like, for me at least, it's if something is abstracted, it's more interpretive and therefore more personal of an experience. Because he seems to reject this idea of just explaining a personal experience and that being valuable or interesting in any way. I don't think art has any value, and I don't think art critique has any value. I think it's all very arbitrary and meaningless and pointless, but it's fun. And because it's fun, I like to do it. Should we get up the most recent chapter of Attack on Titan and talk about the pointless things being fun as the reason to live, not some other grand reason? So that's like my view on it, is like abstract things are interesting because you can get whatever you want out of them and there is no answer, or no, like, not to look for an answer, but just to sort of feel something, reflect on why you feel it and personalize it to yourself, and then tell people about it because it's fun to tell people about it. There's not like a purpose. I've always maintained this. There's not like a purpose to my videos. Like, there's not a right way to think, and I'm not trying to tell you how to think the right way. It's just like a personal diagnostic by me on what's happening, and relating that to people. Also, with the difference between why would you make something into this game if you can explain it? People talk about this with themes all the time. They'll be like, I don't want themes in my stories because I just read a philosophy book if I wanted some pointless philosophy, because in art, philosophy can only really be explored in a very surface level sort of way. And the simple answer to this is, like, people's minds don't all work the same. Like, this is a digi talking point. But like one person is going to look at, read, like, and they're not going to comprehend anything in a philosophy book. It's not just because it's like got high language. You could break it down to the most simple explanation and verbally explain it to them in very basic words what this philosophy means, but it's just not going to resonate with people. But people who are into art and are into images and visual learning, like, if they see Evangelion and understand the themes of Evangelion and sort of the philosophizing of Evangelion by looking at it, and so for some reason in their brain this clicks, like, universally, like intrinsically, and they understand, I get it, about depression and the hedgehog's dilemma and all this other shit and being good to each other and the reason to live and all this sort of shit, rather than it being explained in like a text post, then it has value. And the people creating it probably also understand things in that way, so they can communicate through this visual medium with those people. And it's sort of like learning these things two different ways. And arbitrarily thinking that, like, because it's all laid out in text, that it's more like highbrow or whatever than art is kind of weird. But then from the art perspective, it's more highbrow to... In that medium, it's more highbrow to abstract it and make it subtle in these sort of by using iconography or whatever. It's just sort of these distinct ways of talking about it and the purpose of abstraction. I don't think Matthew Matosis necessarily disagrees with this. It's just sort of exploring this topic. Also, I think people convey ideas in abstract ways because art is how some people understand stuff. You could write out an essay and an idea of The Witness, but it might not stick. The Futurama Devil meme. Different mediums have different rules. Internal monologues being okay in manga, but in movies, show don't tell exists for a lowbrow reason. We talked about that. He also brings up the sort of conventions of different mediums, and I think he shows a manga. I remember that there was a comment about people freaking out that he knew what this manga was or something. Where, like, in manga, internal monologues are just a featured thing. Nobody would second guess a manga for having an internal monologue as exposition, but you can't do that in a movie. People would be like, this is fucking weird, why are you doing that? And just talking about how there's differences in mediums and sort of how subtlety is handled. And it was a neat little point to point out. Part 5, the next part of the video is, it's pointless to review Sekiro as a puzzle game subjectively, ... Obviously, I kind of went into my disagreements here. I don't think it's any better to review inherently or objectively any more worthwhile to review Sekiro as an action game, which is what it is, I suppose, than as a puzzle game. Like, maybe something interesting could be gleaned from looking at it as a puzzle game from that perspective. I'm not willing to write that off inherently, even though I can't think of a way to do it that way. Personally, I'm not willing to write that off. Talks about how he originally tried to judge something from the perspective of what the developers were intending, but that was wrong. He talks about reference points and blind people were trapped in giving them Sekiro. he goes into this analogy a little bit, which is good, and talking about like you need to have played a bunch of games to have a reference point for what is good, and therefore you can judge Sekiro comparing it to a bunch of different games, and sort of that's how you can understand if something is good or not, because it could have mechanics that it could have issues that are derived from mechanics that have been fixed in previous games, and then you would praise a previous game for fixing this shit, and Sekiro is still dragging its heels. I still don't know how you would qualify good and bad and what works and what doesn't in these sort of scenarios. But that's not really what this is about. It's just sort of about... Hold on, let me read the rest of my write-up. You can't compare it to its contemporaries, and your subjective opinions might be interesting, but it's the usual perspective for experts. He talks about, I don't know, he tries to talk about how certain perspectives are more, like, worthwhile than others, and again, I don't know how you would, like, measure this in any way that wasn't subjective. Like, I feel like I would like to hear the perspective of somebody who's played every video game in existence on Sekiro. That would probably be good, but it's only good from my sensibilities. Like, I don't think those are inherent sensibilities to improving a medium or something like that. Every game is competing against every other game for your attention is another thing he says here. In order to know what a game is good at, you need a baseline, play more games, and get more perspective. Again, I don't know about this one, Chief. I feel like this is all reasonable, but I don't think it's inherent, is basically just my disagreement here. Do I have anything else specific to say about this point? Like, I feel like a lot of people just would go, of course you wouldn't review Sekiro as a puzzle game. But it's like, you could. Inherently, this is not flawed. Like, can you define what is and isn't a puzzle game? And then you could, like, run this down and eventually arrive at the fact that Sekiro is a puzzle game. How would you even prove that something exists in Sekiro? There's a bunch of weird abstract ways we could continue this conversation, but I don't know if this is the time or place. And I'm starting to get tired of fucking recording, I'll tell you what. Part 6, too many games that even a critic couldn't play everything, plus games. This part of the video is like the most emotional, like cute part of the video, where he talks about how he's grateful to have been born when he was, because there wasn't so much gaming history that he could never go back to, and he got to play through a bunch of the contemporary stuff. And he sort of talks about somebody who's born in 2020 could never, like it's going to be way harder for them to experience the amount of games he has, and how, like, the overall percentage of games he's ever played, as, like, somebody who's played a shit ton of games, probably more than, like, 90% of people on the planet. Like, he's probably only played, like, 1% of all of the games out there, and if we go by what he was talking about before about having a baseline and trying to play games to compare them to other games, that this is kind of the best time to ever be alive to have played the most, like 1%, let's say he's played 1% of all the video games to ever be made. Like, that number is going to decrease progressively over time as more games are played and more games go missing into the edges of history, right? If you're born in 2020, are you going to play NES games or things that preceded the NES? Probably not, right? Like, it's like 50 years before your time, 40 years before you were born, 50 years before your time, like, and obviously these things are going to get scarcer over time, unless it's like a port or something. You're probably going to end up playing on an NES emulator or an NES Classic rather than the original system, because they're all going to go eventually, and it's just sort of like progressively it's going to get harder and harder for somebody to have played the most amount of games, so he's sort of in a privileged position now. He talks about also, he has the analogy about giving a penny or leaving a penny, and he sort of relates this to movies, where it's like, the movies that have bad endings are leaving a penny, and the movies that have, like, generic good endings are taking a penny, where, like, you are only tense at the end of a movie because you know you've seen at least a few movies that have bad endings, to the point that it's not impossible for there to be a bad ending. So it's sort of like taking advantage of that to up the tension so you care at all. And, like, because if there are only good endings all the time, there would be no tension, because there's never been a bad ending, so there's no reason to believe that it could happen now. It's very unlikely. And he sort of talks about this with, like, games affecting choice. Like, games usually have the illusion of choice, but games that actually have choice and, like, dialogue options and whether or not that affects the plot later on, Like, in future games, after you've played games like that, you will treat the dialogue like it could matter, just in case. And you're going to be disappointed when you find out it doesn't, but, like, it had you in investment the first time that happened because you wanted to see it. So it's sort of like those games leave a penny, and the other ones take a penny. And it's a cool little analogy, and I really like it. And he talks about how you'd have to dedicate your life to be able to play all these games and all this stuff, and how it's a very hard thing to be eclectic. And then he talks about classical music and how classical music is like 500 years of history at this point, to the fact that he lists like 3 traditional famous musicians and points out how none of them lived when the other, like in the time period the other did. So like classic video games, when it's remembered in like 300 years, like Shigeru Miyamoto will be put alongside a dude that won't be born for 50 years who revolutionized gaming. And sort of they'll be put together as classical video game people, and sort of just talking about how history is going to affect we're on the ground floor here of video game history and sort of things like that. Is this the part where he has like the little message to like, and if you're watching this from the future, like, and you may be like, feel sad for us that we didn't get to play the games of your time, but I'm sort of grateful for when I was born. It's real cute. The music is real cute at this part. I really like that one. That message to the future is that's cute. I like that a lot. I swear I would have written that down, but I can't see it. Maybe it was in the next part, and I'm just mixing up. Part 8, second last part. He starts reflecting on his own old videos in this part. Again, it's another meta. These are all meta videos that relate to meta in some way. Hard work doesn't equal something good. Talks about videos he really worked on that were boring, and he got lucky with other videos of him doing things. And talks about perception of the author here. If the creator points out something they dislike about their own work, that could affect you and make you dislike it. Or you could get mad if it's like a part of the thing that you really love, or maybe the thing that makes you love the thing, and the creator comes out and says like, I didn't really like that. It's going to forever affect the way you view that part of whatever it is they created. And generally, I come to the conclusion here that I think you should generally divorce yourself from the creator in most ways. I don't agree here when he says observation and explanations are what count. Aesthetic is narrative. As Digi put it, style is substance, or at least it can be. He ends up going into this thing about how the observation exclamations are what count, and it's not really about being creative in video essays. I don't agree with this. I think creativity can be the substance if you want to. If you're making a grander point, it's not necessarily about the games. Again, I think a lot of the things he says in this he views as inherent, and I just don't. I don't know if we have anything else to say about this part particularly. Lucking into something that's good happens a lot, and him sort of pointing out that this happens a lot in his own creative struggles, so that it must have happened a lot in sort of video game creation, where you sort of hold an author in such esteem for being so great that he came up with this brilliant idea when it's possible that he completely lucked into it. Now I would argue to be in the frame of mind to luck into it already shows a level of expertise and greatness or whatever. This happens all the time with me in music when I'm editing videos, where you put a music track in and it really fits, and the music swells at the same time the narration does, and it sort of fits perfectly. And it's like, well, that's going to seem like I intended that and put a lot of work into timing the music with the audio there, but I really didn't. It just put in and it worked that way. So, but yeah, all that stuff is interesting. Then part 9, weird connections that make things and that undermine the audience's perception. Also, Futurama example. Weird things stick with you, locking into brilliance. This happens to me when I edit music. Well, I just talked about that thing. Part 9 is also about this. He's talking about how the original micro videos idea came to him when he was watching a Futurama compilation episode thing, and how people would just assume that it's about WarioWare, because I think WarioWare is a bunch of mini games. So it's sort of, and the first micro videos video was all about WarioWare. So it sort of makes sense that a bunch of little mini games, and that's reflected in the way the video is, as it's a bunch of little videos compiled, and sort of pointing out that that's not the original inspiration. You thinking that is not something I intended, and this thing that everybody respects about the video isn't really true, and sort of coming out with that and seeing if that affects the way you perceive the video is interesting. And I still maintain that you should probably divorce yourself from that shit and like it regardless of whether or not it's intended or not. And there's just a certain point here that like weird things stick with you. Like in videos, weird points are going to stick with you. Weird memories stick with you. If you think about everything you remember, you don't remember like most of the things that are happening in your life. And you'll remember some weird shit and think about what is about that particular memory resonates with me that I will remember it until I die. It's just some weird shit. It's sort of just talking about the general concept of this and like how it forms you and like trying to think about how things were intended by an author when it could be just some weird abstract shit, not the connection you're making that seems evident in the text. It's just some weird outsourced thing because a bunch of these weird things stack up and they create your identity and things like that. But that's the Matthew Matosis Meta Micro videos. It's very dense. It's a Matthew Matosis video. It's going to make you think and think about a lot of things. It's real cool. I like it. Second best video of the month. One of the best Matthew Matosis videos in recent memory, I think. But number one, we've got Cineflix with the top 10 movies of 2020. This video came out on January the 6th, 2021. These videos come out every year and I always watch them and I'm always very excited for them because they're basically a to-watch list. We talk about the sort of videos being recommendation machines all the time and talking about how this is kind of the appeal of Mother's Basement because he's read and seen most things. He can just ramble off in like 2 seconds. Why you should watch or why something is interesting really quickly. In Cineflix's top 10 movies of the year, like last year it had Portrait of a Lady on Fire and The Irishman in it, two of my all-time favorite movies that The Irishman I'd already watched and I was sort of like, yeah, fuck yeah, they put the movie that I like, the only one I've seen, at number one. That's cool. But I would never have watched Portrait if it wasn't for that video. I probably would have never known what it was. And that's like legitimately maybe my favorite movie ever. And I'm probably going to check out some of the videos on this movies on this list eventually. I really like the narration style I always have for Cineflix. The way they can summarize the appeal of a movie really quickly. The fact that they bring a bunch of shit up. The way they structure their top 10s is just not like a top 10 movies thing. They usually go by genre. Now what they probably do is they probably compile the list and make the top 10. They try to make it eclectic of like the year. And then whenever they talk about, like if they talk about entry 10 and it's a comedy, they'll talk about all the comedies that came out this year and why this one is their favorite. And then like 7 and 9 will be action movie and 8 will be superhero movie and 6 will be fucking romance and 4 will be documentary and 3 will be... It's sort of going through this eclectic, like this is the bulk of the shit that came out this year that you should watch. And using this list as sort of a reference point is like a very helpful resource, I think, and I like it a whole lot. There's not really a lot to say about it. I haven't seen any of the movies on this list. I forget what number one is. I think it's like this. It's part of this like trilogy thing. It's called Small Axe? Yeah, the Small Axe series and their favorite one that was about music or whatever. Number 2 is the Sound of Metal. I don't even remember this one when they talked about it. It's really good. It's like a bunch of interesting movies you probably never heard of, and you're like, oh, if you're not a film buff in any big way. And I like it a lot. I like how it's presented. I like all of this stuff. It's really cool. They're always cool. They always make quality lists. They always have I like the aesthetic of having the name of the movie in the bottom of the screen constantly, and referencing a bunch of shit is really good. Again, there's not going to be much to say about this video, especially after the Matthew Matosis one where I went through, there's basically 9 videos and 9 different ideas to explore. It's just 10 movies, but there's probably like 100 movies in the video of things they reference and talk about. It's real good. It's always real good. I have a fond place in my heart for the end of year lists every year, but that's all, I believe, for the top 10 analysis video/video essays for January 2021. Can you believe it? The year of our Lord and Savior. Tell me what you think if you made it this far about the new format, whether or not it's good or bad, what's going on. I fucked up the list. Tell me which one should be number 1 or whatever the fuck. I don't know. I'm kind of interested in doing top 5 worst. I like that I do 10 good ones and only 5 bad ones so people couldn't accuse me of trying to start drama or whatever. Outside of that, I don't really know what else to say. I don't want to go over the list again. You were here for it. Tell me the feedback stuff. Subscribe to the second channel. Subscribe to the first channel. Follow me on Twitter. There will be more. There might be another type of reviewing YouTube video type thing on the channel that might just be called YouTube in review, and then talking about a specific video and maybe playing through it and commenting on it throughout. If I have a lot to say about a particular video, that would probably be more disagreeable, I think, towards a disagreeable video or something like that. We'll have to see in the future. Stick around to find out is sort of what I'm saying. This is where Digest lives now. This is the form Digest will take unless there's a lot of backlash and people want me to change it back to the old way or whatever. We'll have to see. But with that being said, I'm still not sure if I should say support links in the description below, thanks, as the outro for the second channel, or if we should come up with something unique. Well, it's too late now. We're not coming up with something unique on the fly here. So we'll just say goodbye and support links in the description below. Thanks.